are your favorite people in history?
Oh my! Do you mean historic figures, or do you mean people whom I sort of looked up to when I was growing up?
Who do you follow? I mean, over the years, who have you followed? You know, the Winston Churchill types in the world.
Well, I think Winston Churchill was the greatest man of the 20th century. And I find it horrifying that most American high school students do not know who Winston Churchill is.
What was so great about him?
One thing alone, I think that he probably, if any one man could be said to have saved Western democracy, that one man would be Winston Churchill. That he saw the enormous dangers that led to World War II, warned against them, that if he had been heeded in time, there might have been 40 million people who wouldn't have lost their lives. But even being heeded at the 11th hour, it was enough for him to pull Britain through. Had Britain not pulled through, it's very doubtful that the United States would have pulled through. And in that case, it's highly unlikely that I would be sitting here alive.
Who's your favorite American president?
Oh, my heavens. That's a tough... Well, Abraham Lincoln, I guess. But it's a shame that one has to go all the way back to Abraham Lincoln to find a president that one really can admire in an unqualified way. I think among the modern people, in different respects, I would say FDR, John F. Kennedy, and Ronald Reagan. And even though domestically Reagan and FDR are at opposite poles, that they recognized an international danger and saved the life of this country, which without which all the other issues wouldn't matter.
Do you have an ideology, if not a political party?
Oh, I suppose, yeah. I'm a great believer in maximum freedom.
Civil libertarian?
I certainly not in the sense in which the American Civil Liberties Union is. I don't believe that hoodlums should be kept in school because of some strange reading of the Constitution. Because I think people have to recognize that all people owe their lives to the surrounding society, and that they cannot simply demolish it because it is unjust, because everything human has always been unjust. And that what you're going to do to make it better will have to be within that context. So that my tendency is to want more freedom for the individual and less... I don't want people making decisions who don't pay the price of their decisions. And that's what politics is all about. You don't pay the price of the decision. As I point out earlier in the book, one of the reasons we had a Jim Crow era in this country was because the politicians didn't pay the price of that. That was enormously costly to the white as well as to the black population. But the politicians who put that in didn't pay any cost for that. They drew their full salary irrespective of all that. And I want someone who discriminates to have to lose money discriminating, because, for the examples I gave in the book, people tend to back off when they start losing big money. Harlem was an all-white community. It became a black community despite organized efforts to keep blacks out, because people were losing money trying to keep it a white community. And I think people in the civil rights area have missed a bet by not trying to promote more free markets, because that makes discrimination the most costly it can be.
One of the most interesting sentences here in the book is about India, where you say that they are the most diverse country in the world with 180 different languages and 500 different dialects. Are they more of a melting pot than the United States is?
Good heavens, no, they don't melt in the slightest. They're polarized. In fact, I think one of the tragedies is we have organized groups in the United States trying to balkanize the United States, to create in the United States the enormous handicaps under which India is laboring, under which many parts of sub-Saharan Africa are laboring, due to all kinds of historical and geographical reasons. And now the United States, having escaped all that, having been blessed with having one language and culture over a distance that in Europe would go from Madrid to Moscow, having had that blessing, we're now going to pour that down the drain, and we're going to go for balkanization, not being aware apparently of what has happened in the history of the Balkans, or aware of what happens when you have people who speak different languages and have radically different beliefs trying to be in the same society.
Go back to the campus. You said that the race relations are bad on the campus. If this keeps up, what's going to happen?
Oh, they'll get worse and worse. There are already skinheads recruiting on some college campuses. There are already white students' unions being formed. The there are already harassments of minority students on a scale unseen 20 or 30 years ago. And of course, then there's the reaction on both sides. It escalates because what you do is give a lot of leverage to the crazier elements in all the different groups. That is, if you pick an international example, in Israel, someone said on the radio, on the television, that because this Israeli man has killed these, 6 or 7 Arabs, that any thought right now of any rapprochement between the Arabs and the Jews has to be put aside. So you're saying that one man has the leverage to prevent millions of people on both sides from working out some kind of livable arrangement between the two of them. And of course, once you get this racial hype, you put that power into the hands of demagogues and hoodlums to prevent vast numbers of people who may be decently disposed not to be able to do anything because they are polarized by the relative handful of crazies or whatever.
Go back to the campus again. What is creating the prejudice, other than the elites that you talk about that have their own? What is it among people that creates the differences that they don't get along?
Well, the differences have always been there, but they got along before. I mean, blacks and whites were different at Harvard when I was there, but you didn't find all the black students huddled together at lunchtime at the end of some table, the way you do on many campuses today. All the black students I knew had white roommates, and I would say that the ones that I knew were all popular, other than me. But that's not the situation today.
So what's causing it?
The fact that you do have those little elites who have their agenda. It's the fact that the black students are forced to come out and do the demonstrations and the whatnot. The fact that you have students there who are tremendously alienated because they suddenly find themselves in this situation where academically it's all they can do to keep their noses above the water, if they can do that. And then there's someone there to tell them that this is all due to the white power structure. And then there are the white students who are sick of hearing that. And they say, if you can't hack it, that's your problem. Don't give us this junk. And then that's called insensitivity. It's self-reinforcing. You know, there are some reactions that are self-equilibrating, but there's some that keep feeding each other. Let's say an ugly racial incident happens on campus at one of the elite colleges. Invariably, the first thing that will be said is we must have now a larger quota of minority students, a larger quota of minority faculty, and we must now subject the white students to these sensitivity courses or ethnic courses or what have you, courses that they've rejected taking, otherwise they wouldn't be necessary to force them. That is not going to make things better. That's going to make them worse. But as they get worse, then you keep doing that. And so it's just an upward spiral. And I just don't know where that spiral is going to end. I don't see anybody with the courage to end it. And I see it leading only to bad things.
What would you do if you were an administrator at a college or a university?
Well, you see, you're bringing me in now 20 years after they've gone into this mess. 20 years ago, I said, don't do it. 20 years ago, I said, if you do it, this will be the consequence. And I wasn't the only one. And people simply did not want to hear it. And so I am very unsympathetic to the administrators. I said, you made this mess, you get out of it. Now, fortunately for me, nobody wants to hear what I have to say about it now. And so there's not a live issue for me. Some gentleman wrote me from Princeton. I think he's associated with the university in some way. That would I come to Princeton and confer with this or that person? And I said, no. No one has ever asked me in all these years to come to a university and do this. I don't think there's the slightest interest at Princeton or anywhere else in what I have to say about these matters. Because the ideologues feel they have the word, the truth, and the light, and they don't want me confusing the issue. And the others are afraid of the ideologues. And so there's no point in my making an unnecessary trip across the country just to chit-chat with people at Princeton.
Let me ask you, it may not be any of our business, but normally someone who's spent as long as you have at a university deals with a thing called tenure. You don't teach. You're a senior fellow. Do you have tenure?
No, we do not have tenure. In fact, I use that very often when people tell me that you need to have tenure in order to have academic freedom. I say, well, nobody has tenure at Hoover. That's why we're so cautious in what we say.
So you're actually associated with Hoover, not with Stanford.
Well, but Hoover, but my paycheck is from